we'll be chatting with Joe tonight. But if Joe, have you worked out what you're doing? Can you see it there? So
See ya.
so what you do is if you don't have the option to start the watch party pop up, you can go share, and that's
No,
for
start
any.
the watch party. Got it.
Yeah, cool. So what you'll see is people will join, and it'll let you know who's joined your watch party, and they'll be able to chat to you in real time with a message or something like that. And we'll go to the messages over time just to see what people are saying. So I've got a couple of tabs open. I will say just ahead of us starting that the tabs that I've got open are just people with a passion, and the Craig Rowe one, my personal page. I am broadcasting to Ozswish, but if you are watching on the Ozswish Facebook page, then we won't be looking at that chat window. If you know Joe or I, there are a couple of options. Now, Big Joe has asked that he said he's got his phone with him. He's already smiling. Obviously, there's some content already coming in, but he if you have him on a private message and want to message him privately to ask a question if we're not seeing it in the chat, then I encourage you to do that. His phone's probably going to start buzzing 100 mile an hour. But thanks for joining us on People with a Passion today, Big Joe. How are you, mate?
I'm very, very well, and thank you for having me. This is going to be a bit of fun, I think.
Yeah, so I really appreciate. I had hoped to get you on last week, but I didn't push the issue with you, and in the sense that you pointed out to me, even though you post to Facebook, you don't live on it. so,
Yeah.
so,
So you got second best last week, that's for sure.
oh, yeah, oh, I'm sure if Jason's watching, he'll like that. So last week we had Jason Cadee on for those guys that don't know, and yeah, Big Joe and Jace go back a long ways and were roommates when Jason played for the Gold Coast Blaze. So I thought what we'll do tonight is we'll go back a fair ways, mate. It's sort of make it like a bit of This Is Your Life, actually.
Oh, gosh. Okay.
So I'll go to my first interaction with you that I can actually remember. Was at Australia Day Carnival I think it was 1999 or 2000, and you were the assistant coach of the women's NBL team here with Eric Bailey, and you were you were in the final, and I was sitting on the bench next to you, and we were having a chat, and you were selling uniforms.
Wow, that was a long time ago. And look, that term assistant coach is probably very, very loose. I was actually helping team manage at the time, but I think we were short on some coaches at the time, so I just had to sit there to keep Eric calm. Was,
Yeah.
I think, what I was doing at that carnival.
Do you remember if you won that one? I know you made the finals.
I can't remember. I can't remember who was on the team, to
Yeah.
be honest.
Yeah. So how many teams do you reckon you've managed? Like across like all the have you ever sort of thought about going all the way back to just your domestic comps and your state teams and then your NBL teams and being
I
involved with those?
I remember my very, very, very first team, and it was the under 20s Southern District Spartans team, which featured Ben Thompson. He had just come back from the AIS, and back then it was very unusual for Queenslanders to be at the AIS. Like it was now it's sort of common, but back then, we weren't very good as a state, obviously, and Ben Thompson was probably one of the early ones to go. He had just come back from that, and Toby Zaremba was also Queensland and Gold Coast, was at the AIS, come back and play for the Gold Coast that year. So that was a very, very first team managing experience I had with Eric Bailey. He was the coach, and then just loved it ever since.
Yeah. So so my show's called People with a Passion, and appreciate you doing the live stream, but this is a demonstration because you've really always been boots and all in basketball with this managerial stuff. What drew you to the managerial side of the game as opposed to, I know you did play a little bit, but what drew you to the managerial side of the game and not like coaching and reffing and being the NBA player that you could have been?
Well, funny you should say that. The playing side of things for me was never great, even at what I like to think was my best. And then, to be honest, I found coaches always get fired. So I've never, ever, ever really had any interest in coaching at any point in time of my life. And the team managing side of it was a way for me to stay involved when the weight started to pack on. Like I said, I wasn't a very good basketball player to start with anyway, but then, when the weight started to get on. It's obviously harder to move, but I love the game so much. You just try and find other ways in which to stay involved. And for me, it was team managing, and obviously been doing it ever since. I can't shake it. I did the under 18 SA team last year. Where I had people say, mate, you're a GM of an NBL team. Why are you cooking for 15 kids, on a road trip for 10 hours? Because I love it. Like you said, it's a passion that I just enjoy doing.
So I know you can't pick your favourite. Well, you may well, actually. Has there been any favourite memories or teams that you hold close to your heart? Like, I know the Bullets champions, I think they were 07, was very big. I know that meant something to you. So we will talk about that. But is there any other that would stand out, juniors and or NBL, that you just love that season more than others, or are they all good?
I mean, they're all different. They're all good, but they're all good in different ways. Look, there's a couple of trips where you obviously think, geez, I'm glad I'm never going to see these people again. There's no doubt about that. But there are some very, very good memories I've had, and I've been very, very lucky. The Bullets 06-07 championship team was probably the pinnacle, I think. Is just a perfect representation of what basketball and what teamwork is on the floor, off the floor. I think the Bullets ran that championship grand final a couple of nights ago. I mean, it just clicked. It just worked. Like I said, the wives, the players, the admin, the management, ownership, it just worked. And as a result, we won the whole thing. I guess the next one close to that is, again, just like everyone else, your Australian representation. I was very, very lucky and privileged to be involved with the World Uni Games men's team that won the bronze in Italy earlier this year. This year? No.
Last year, I think it was.
Yeah. Mid last year. That also, just because you're representing your country, and you hear of boomers and opals and Australian athletes when they speak about what it's like when they do represent their country. That was a first for me. And when you watch it from the outside, you think, you wonder whether it's all real when they talk like that. But when you're there and you're living it, it's an unbelievable feeling.
Who
when
coached
you're representing your country?
Who coached that team? Was that Bevo? Who was
Rob, the Bull Beveridge. Don't call him Bevo. It's the Bull.
The Bull, is it? All right.
Yeah.
I'll have to.
You can get him on the show.
Well, yeah. Yeah, so interestingly, when he came up for the level 2, I was trying to get him on the show. He has said that he will come on at some point. Yeah. Obviously, he's flying across the Dutch, or flown across the Dutch.
He's got time on his hands now. So
So look, I connect with him from time to time. He took me for my coaching level 1, and I remember at the time, and I was a player trying to be a coach, and or a coach, trying to be a player, whichever you want to say. And I remember him saying to me, and I've told other athletes, he said, you rush too much, you got to slow down. There's a difference between rushing and being quick. He said, you slow down 2 steps and you're still quick, but you're missing shots because you're rushing. And that was some feedback he gave me that I remember to this day, and I've imparted to other athletes. But look, we have got a few people in the chat, so appreciate anyone that's coming in to say g'day to Big Joe Tertzarkian, or Big Joe as we call him. So I say hello to some friends of mine. So Brendan Alder, I always get that wrong. So he's saying g'day, and Chris Salisbury. I actually roomed with him and his brother for a while. They played QBL and stuff. You've got Craig Leaney, obviously, one of the Brisbane Caps people, and Michael Anthony McDaniel, who I actually interviewed. Cool. So he went into the MMA. Were you aware of that? Yeah. So he's got the quickest knockout in XFC history here in Australia. At 11, I think it was at 11 seconds. So yeah, don't get that guy angry. I actually played with him for about 6 games, and he was the most terrifying person I think I ever met. If you lose, he was just
very intense.
Yeah, absolutely intense, but an absolutely great guy and a great referee too. He refs my team's games now. It's amazing how many games we win when he refs. Jokes. I wish it worked like that actually. So if anyone's got any questions for Joe, we'll go to the questions from time to time and just have a look. And we got Paul Foster. He's joined the chat at my end. Who have you got in your end that you want to shout out to there, Joe?
Like I said, this is the first time I'm using this thing. Oh, fanfare. Let me tell you. What a great human. Fanfare, I appreciate everything that you do. You keep me informed about everything that's going on in Basketball Queensland when I was in SA. So I appreciate you.
He is amazing.
Wayne Ticker Hemming is on. He's with the AAP News and was very, very big with the with reporting on the Bullets when we were in town. So great to have you here, Ticker.
Yeah, so you got any questions at this stage? Like, everyone must know your story, mate, because no one's asked a question. So I'll have to start asking some. So,
I'm glad.
Yeah. So I wanted to talk to you about a few things, actually, just various things. So as far as teams that you've done, you've had a rough journey in the sense of, with the Bullet success in the mid-2000s, the global financial crisis hit, and it affected, obviously, the Bullets in a big way with the ownership there, which was at the time of the ABC Learning Centres. So what was that like to have such a close-knit group of guys that won a championship and then to find out that you're not going to be back to challenge it, like when you guys first heard the news on that one?
Oh, look, it's probably hard for me to say on behalf of everybody, but personally, I mean, I think it was such a nice journey to the top of the hill. And then I genuinely feel, you think of Perth Wildcats, for example, the dynasty that they have. And I was only talking to Joey about this yesterday because he watched Game 4 for the first time, like ever, the other day. And I think what was building at the Bullets, if it was able to hang on, I have no doubt, and I could be wrong, but I have no doubt that both Joey, myself, that group, Narelle Kelly, that group that was there in JVG would be there to this day. 10 or so championships, we don't know. But I tell you what, I think they would have rolled. They would have started rolling in. I'm not going to say we would have got 10 like Perth, because Perth are by far the mecca, but I think a dynasty was on the way, and then to have that cut short was a bit disappointing. But again, big picture things. I mean, you had an owner that was sitting, in front of the group telling us, what he had gone through in tears. I mean, it's tough for everybody. It was a tough hit for everybody.
Yeah. So that journey with the Bullets, I know from CJ, I'm going to try and get CJ on here because he's got some really good stories around
I'm not going to understand him, but
that season. So he shared with me one day, and he's a great storyteller. So that's what I'll say about CJ. But he talked about some of the strategies that they applied that confused the nicknames and that they all had for each other. So I'll have to talk.
What nickname was?
No, what was yours actually? No.
Snacks.
What was it?
Snacks.
Who come up with the nicknames? Was it CJ? Would have been behind a lot of them, wouldn't he?
CJ, Gibbo, Brad Williamson were probably, I think, the three that were the main catalysts behind having normal names for these guys. And yeah, it was like I said, it was a lot of fun. That season was a lot of fun.
Yeah. So how do you, like, something that seems to have been gone from what I can see from the 90s is the concept of franchise players, that we don't seem to see, like the Leroy Loggins that go almost all the way, well, pretty much all the way through their career for one team. We don't tend to see that so much now, and I think that whether it be him as a player, but there was always a core group that sort of tended to stay together. How hard is it to keep teams together in today's environment? I mean, you're seeing the NBA guys come over to recruit players and that. Teams are just changing all the time. Is that hard to maintain, like you say, a dynasty if you're actually changing your roster all the
time? At the end of the day, I think money talks. That's a big thing. And then you also take a chance on there's always, people always refer to high budget teams, mid budget and low budget teams. They've done it since time's begun. Again, this Bullets team of ours, at the time, we were considered a high budget team, So, your lower budget teams, I guess, they take a chance on a player, get them at low cost. They come in, they have a great season, and then your mid to high level teams can then outbid the lower level team, and then all of a sudden your roster changes. That's one small reason, I guess, that could cause that to happen. Of course, others, I mean, as teammates, people might not like each other, mismanagement. There's lots of reasons why it's hard to keep a roster together.
Yeah, so we've got Sean Connolly. So I've got to be so careful with some of these because some of these guys that ask stuff. So Tim Tams in bed. I was speaking about Tim Tams in bed.
That I can tell you about. That is actually a funny story. It was a night after we won the championship in Melbourne, and I didn't know this at the time, but my gallbladder ruptured that night.
Okay.
So I'm thinking it's the wine, the cigars, the celebration. That's what's causing my stomach to just give me excruciating pain. So we had our little shindig at the hotel. Then the boys went out to carry on. I didn't go out afterwards because of this pain. The boys all thought I was soft. So I woke up in the morning the next day and I'm rolling in bed and I feel something's not right. So I'm thinking, I'm feeling around. I'm thinking, what's this? And, I pull my hand up and there's this brown, and I'm thinking, the first thing you think is it's poo. So instinct, this is probably disgusting, but instinct, I'm like, and I'm thinking, this smells like a Tim Tam. It smells like a Tim. Surely, how's it, and I'm like, I must be asleep, drunk, well, I don't know. Anyway, I ended up getting out of bed and CJ had come in and dropped a whole packet of Tim Tams in my bed. So, throughout the night, it's hot, sweat, rolling, and it created this mess that now that I know it's Tim Tams, it's okay.
Oh, yeah, it would be, but good story. And yes, CJ involved in that one as well.
Definitely got to get CJ on the show.
Oh, mate, I can tell you. Some of the stories he told me had me captivated. I think he'd be great. So I'm definitely going to chase him up. If anyone's got any questions for Big Joe, who's our guest tonight, I hope this one's one you can share, mate, because what have you got there?
No, I'm not
going to go there. That's right.
One.
That's so good, mate. But I'm happy that you're getting some love from some of your boys there. At the moment, anyone who's tuning in who wants to ask a question of Big Joe, for those that are part of my audience that aren't aware, Big Joe's actually been a basketball manager of multiple teams and has managed basketball associations as well as he's helping in South Australia now. Are you actually in your managerial role there in South Australia?
I was, yes.
Yeah. Yep. So obviously the coronavirus has changed things a little bit. You're back home in Brisbane with family, which is more important. And Mr. Jim, your dad, has just had a heart operation. So probably good thing that we actually missed last week because I think that was around the time he come out of hospital. So so probably best that you're helping around the house. My mum's gone through that. So so if anyone's got any questions, fire them away, throw them at us. Have you got any questions on your end that you can answer that are safe?
There's not a lot of questions, just more a lot of
banter.
Give me a shout out kind of.
Yeah, shout out to some people that are watching. That's fine. I'll look through my list.
Just look. There are a lot of really, really, really nice comments from people who I guess have been associated with me in basketball when I was here in Brisbane for a long period of time. So I won't, because there's a lot of them. I'd really love to mention all of you, but it is greatly appreciated. I've always felt the love here in Brisbane more than anywhere. And I've been to Darwin, I've been to Adelaide. Every time I come home to Brisbane, just from the basketball community, the love it's abundant, So I really do appreciate that. That does mean a lot.
It's one thing I noticed with a lot of your posts and everything is that you're forever grateful, and I think that's a trait that everyone knows you for is that whenever, like, you're always grateful for the opportunities you're given and that the sport's given you, and you are putting your hand in. So it doesn't surprise me. I don't, and this is being honest, and I don't think I've ever heard an ill word spoken about Joe Tertzarkian, or Big Joe, as you're affectionately known, and nor should there be, because just the work that you do in the sport is amazing. So
there'll be some people. There'll be some people eye rolling right now. I can tell you that, but that's okay.
Yeah, look, everyone's got haters, mate, but that's fine. Like, you can't expect all 7 billion.
I appreciate that. That's
Seven,
very, very fine.
7 billion people on the planet. They're not all going to like you, Joe. Just saying.
No, thank you.
But look, let's talk about your weight loss journey, which is the elephant in the room sometimes when people haven't seen you for a long time. So 6 years ago, you decided to focus on that, and a big motivation was there from friends and loved ones that were deeply concerned about your weight, which was up at around 280 odd kilos. So how's that journey been for you? You know, you're a changed man. Looking at you, you actually look like 20-something years old. So everyone's jealous, but
it was life changing, but I guess more importantly, life saving. I was very, very lucky to avoid heart problems, cholesterol problems, or all those diabetes at 285 kilos. So when the opportunity arose, and I'll give you the short, quick version of how it came about, because not a lot of people really know it. I was working at Auchenflower at the time at BBI, and I was at the front counter. You know, as you walk in the main door, you got the glass office. I was in there. I had a guy come up to me and say, "Hey, Big Joe, how you going?" And I'm like, "Good, good." And he's like, "You don't know who I am, do you?" And then typical me and my person, I'm like, "Well, mate, you don't know who I am." Like this. And he was like, "Well, as a matter of fact, I do." He goes, "You used to be the manager of the Bullets. You used to do this, this, this." He goes, "And you used to actually bring me an extra bottle of wine to my box at the Bullets games." Now, I remembered that, but I didn't remember him.
Mm-hmm.
So he said, "Have you got a piece of paper?" He wrote down his name. He said, "Google me. I'm going to go play my game. And when I come back, we'll have a chat." Okay, no problem. Gave me his name. I Googled it. This guy is the leading surgeon in the gastro banding in Australia.
Yeah.
As he walked out, he said, you Google me?" I said, "Yeah." So, "You know what I do?" I said, "Yep." And he goes, "So when you're ready here, I can fix that. But it starts here." And then he just walked out.
Yeah.
I got home that night. I spoke to my mum. I rang my dad. My mother started crying with joy. My dad came home 2 weeks later. We went and saw him, got it done.
Yeah.
So that's a short version.
So the other thing there is that so mentally, were you ready? Did you, because you'd had a lot of people concerned for you that were giving you not advice so much, but actually.
They were giving me grief. And I'll never forget the four main people that were giving me grief: Simon Curl, Joey Wright, Sam McKinnon, Adam Gibson.
Yeah.
Those four were brutal, but I knew where it was coming from. So now I appreciate it. At the time, I'll tell you right now, I didn't.
Yeah.
I didn't. So I wasn't mentally ready. Now, I mean, I tell those four guys all the time, like, I should have listened to you guys 10 years ago. It's just something I should have done, but
yeah,
it wasn't here.
It's an amazing story, and one that is shareable in the sense that there's others that experience that same thing, and there are other people that probably, this is the one thing I've learned about truth, and I often say, when someone says, I've got friends and I ask them to actually, I can't remember what I ask them to say now, but I ask them to prep me before they tell me a truth, so that then I actually mentally say, okay, regardless of what I believe, I need to hear this.
Yeah.
So I want the honesty. So to have friends in your circle that actually can have an honest opinion and give it to you is actually a measure of the friendship that you actually have with those people. So I think you recognise that now. It doesn't feel like that at the time when you...
Oh, absolutely not.
On the receiving end of a truth. But yeah, I know it is. I asked them to say, don't take this the wrong way, but... So that's a trigger for me. So if anyone hates me and wants to give me feedback, then by all means say, don't take this the wrong way, but, and that sort of, and then give a pause for me to then register in my mind, okay, you're about to be insulted here, but you're going to learn something. So that's something that I find that, yeah, if they're friends, it's a little bit different, though people offer some constructive criticism. But let's look to our, you got a question that we can share there? I know you're getting banter there. So.
This is. Can I actually tell the story? This is actually really funny.
Yeah, go for it.
So, friend of mine just got on here and said, "Bro, tell them about your surgeon and Bryant Matthews." So I'll tell you the short version because this is hilarious. So I had two procedures. I had the banding, the sleeving, I guess, and then the excess skin removal. So for the second procedure, which was the excess skin removal, was very, very extensive. Like they removed 17 kilos of skin in one hit. Like it's a massive hit to the body system. Mm-hmm. So anyway, we had the procedure. A couple of days later, the surgeon comes in and meets with me, and he's telling me how he's got. And this person here, I'm not going to name him, okay. But he was sitting with me. He came to visit. And then my surgeon comes in and says, "Oh, how you feeling?" You know, he goes, "Oh," and we're talking about basketball. And he's like, "Yeah, I've done a knee surgery on a basketballer before." So I'm thinking, "Oh, but do you remember it?" Because, you know, anyone with basketball, yeah, I think I know. So I'm like, "Who is it?" And he's like, "Oh, his name, I think is Bryant someone." And then I thought Bryant Matthews. Remember, Bryant Matthews was the import with the Bullets with us for 1 year, and then went to Sydney. So I'm like, Bryant Matthews, and he's like, "Oh, well, yeah, maybe something." And yeah, you know, I know Bryant, this and that. And then he's like, "No, Kobe Bryant." I was like, "Oh my goodness!" So this guy who removed my excess skin was talking about Kobe Bryant. I'm talking about Bryant Matthews. Yeah. And we just both fell out laughing, and it was funny. It was really, really funny.
I've had a similar experience where I was with Wayne Larkin's doggy, and he introduced me to Rob Rose, and I remember shaking Rob's hands in the stairwell at BBI at a Classics, and I said to Rob, I said, "Oh, you used to coach the QBL men's team," and he got not removed, but he didn't get returned. And stupidly later on, I said to Doggy, I'm like, "Man, I just insulted that guy because he was like 2-time MVP of the league."
Yeah, you did.
Yeah. So how stupid!
Good
like
stories,
I didn't even twig at the time what I did there until after. Doggy and I was like laughing our heads off. But yeah, those sort of embarrassing sort of where you get something wrong like that. I thought that's all he's remembered for is coaching QBL in Townsville. So. You got any other? I've got. So you got Brendan, one of my mates, saying how good your weight loss journey has been. You probably do know Brendan. He's been a fixture around basketball for a while. Brendan Alder.
Yeah, I do. Yep.
Yeah. So he's shouting out and saying,
"Oh, thank you."
Yeah, saying how good it is to see how good you look, and see if I've got anything in the other chat here. So we've got a few people. Jess Cluner, she was an assistant with me, so shout out to her if she's still there. It's hard to know who. I've got about 28 watching in my watch party, and another 7. So we've got about 35 in mine, and you probably
more than Jason's.
Yes, it actually. It fluctuates. Yeah.
We're wrapping up now, Kadee.
So I'm not sure what you've got in your watch party, but if you've got any questions, anyone who's watching for Big Joe, then please take time to ask them, because we are going to the conversation from time to time. I know you've got message there that all these people are sharing, which is great. It's what it's about. But I'll ask a question and you can go. Actually, have you got something you want to say to someone that's actually posted something there while you?
Everyone, I tell you, these people just want shout outs. I can't just give out shout outs for no reason. Fanfare. So what are you doing now? We'll get to that. Come on, Fanfare. Don't jump the gun.
Yeah.
I tell you what I do. Again, this is just it's nice to. You mentioned feeling grateful and what have you. Like looking through the list of like who is actually tuned in. Like it's from Brisbane to Darwin to Adelaide. Like again, to everybody that's taken the time to just sit here and watch and listen, like it does mean a lot. So thank you guys.
Yeah. So let's talk about some NBL stuff. So one of the things that has happened for you this season with the NexStars program, is that what it's called? NexStars NBL. You become a bit of a chaperone for a whole heap of NBA administrators and GMs and people like that. How was that experience for you as being the guy that they sort of said, hey, take these guys around the league and look after them?
Oh, it's an unbelievable experience. I think with my personality, I mean, you know it. It's what I enjoy doing. I can befriend most of them without a problem. I got to be honest, the Portland dudes were a tough nut to crack. They certainly were. They came the first time when Terrence Ferguson was with us in Adelaide, and Joey came with me to a lot of those meetings. And I tell you, the Portland dudes, we tried everything. They looked like long-haired bikies. Okay. They really did. We could not just connect with them for some reason.
Maybe because you weren't bikies.
Maybe. I'm not sure, but it was really, really weird. But having that opportunity is just incredible. Again, you get to meet people, you get to see how they do things. I get the opportunity to pick their brains as well, because, you know, like players, referees, coaches, I mean, everyone strives to be in the NBA. Reporters, administrators, like that, it is a dream, or we all strive to be in the NBA in whatever capacity we are in. And I'm no different. So if it happens, it happens. If it doesn't, it doesn't. But I mean, it's certainly the network that I've been able to create now, because I diligently keep in contact with probably 80% of them. Mm-hmm. Even if it's just via WhatsApp, hey, how you going? Are you guys just checking in? Make sure you guys are okay with COVID, you know, that kind of stuff. And then to have them come back also is probably the nicest part about it. The funny story with Mitch Kupchak that came in, probably the highest profiled NBA executive that I was privileged enough to take care of when he was in Adelaide. I came home and Joey's like, you got anybody coming to the game this weekend? I'm like, yeah, some guy called Mike Ketchup or something. You should have seen his face. He swore at me, obviously, and said I was everything under the sun. And he's like, man, Mitch Kupchak you're talking about. I'm like, yeah, maybe. And he's like, Joe, like he is big time. Out of everybody that has come through, he is big time. So I Googled him before I went and met with him and what have you, and managed to spend maybe an hour and a half with him. Mm-hmm. And just being able to talk to him and him giving me advice and that kind of, like, it's, you know, it's a very privileged position to be in, and very grateful for it.
Yeah, so Joey sort of started that whole NexStars thing with Terrence Ferguson, actually getting him in and that connection with the NBA to get a potential high draft pick in the NBL, and then say more or less, and the NBL taking notice, obviously, and that obviously we had Torrey Craig, Terrence Ferguson, you know, cracking the NBA. Then you have Mitch Creek knocking on the door with a couple of 10-day contracts or whatever they're offering. I don't know how many games it was. I think we have 10 days. What do they offer over there? Are they 10 days or the 10 game or something? What was he on? Do you remember? Yeah, something like that. So yeah, so the profile has been raised with thanks to guys like Larry Kesselman, undoubtedly a godsend for the league. I remember going back maybe 7 or 8 years ago, everyone was putting a bullet in the head of the NBL and wanting to start a new league.
Again, I was talking about this to someone else the other day, saying that prior to the current ownership of the league, we probably went through maybe a 5 or 6 year period where at the end of every season, are we going to fold? Are we losing another team? Are we going to go again? Are we going to shorten the season? Are we going to stay in summer? Are we going to not? We went through that period where there was always something negative was going to come at the end of the season, unfortunately. But Obviously now it's incredible. It's getting bigger and better.
The link to the NBA. You're getting opportunities to go over, and the coaches are to be involved in the summer league and look at potential guys that aren't being drafted by teams or maybe next gens to see to get them out here to blood them ahead of the draft. So
Absolutely.
so how's that experience for you to see how it's done in the NBA and some of our NBL clubs going over to actually play against those teams? What's that experience like?
Oh, that's incredible. Incredible as well. I went with the Sixers 2 years ago to Utah. Um, and again, to see how they do it, you get to spend time with their executives and their front office and meet their people and just see how on another level they are and gives us something to strive. It's not a negative way. It's not to say that we're so far behind. It's just to say that gives us something to strive for or strive towards or to be like. Um, but yeah, to meet those people and see, like I said, how they do it is like it's very very it's very encouraging, very good.
I would encourage anyone who is watching, if you have any questions for Big Joe, he's the guest on live streaming with friends on People with a Passion tonight. So I appreciate you being here. If you haven't yet liked the People with a Passion Facebook page, then please do that. I unfortunately couldn't stream to YouTube tonight and decided not to stream to Twitter. so so I had problems with the YouTube and it was just taking too long. So tonight, just across the three Facebook pages. If you're on the Ausswish Facebook page watching, I am not monitoring that chat, so be nice. But at the same time, if you do want to ask Joe a question, which seems a bit odd because that is my basketball page, that I'd have Joe on. But if you do want to ask a question, then jump on the People with a Passion Facebook page. If you haven't yet had the chance, please give People with a Passion a like. We had Jason Cadee on last week. I will be speaking with a number of people, not necessarily basketball people, but probably more so basketball, given that is my circle. That is my circle of friends. My People with a Passion show that I record is actually on a Sunday, is pre-recorded. Get this, Joe. Today I spoke with an undertaker, and this person who works with cadavers for a living. So
Jeez.
they're an author, and they write macabre. Their name is Harlequin Grimm. People can go and check that out. Young guy, I don't know how old he is, but he feared death. So what did he do? He went and became an undertaker. He
Yeah.
said for the
Wow.
first 2 weeks he tremored and dealt with all the smells and things that went associated with dealing with dead bodies. And he now writes from a perspective that no other writer he feels has, because he's been working with dead bodies and still does 12 hours a day at the moment. He was saying so yeah. So People with a Passion's the main video page, but if anyone's got any questions for Joe, who's my current guest here on the live stream, please by all means do that. I've got Steve Catlin's joined. Who else we got? Yeah, Steve's on that one. We've still got a good number of people watching, about 40 across both of my pages that are open, and I'm sure you've got a few there. So
I don't know how to tell how many.
okay, up the top, it would probably show you a little. Top left is where it says live. It shows you a little eyeball and numbers of eyeballs currently on the stream. You can't see it. That's all good. That's all good. Any questions there while you're looking down at your chat window that you want to respond to?
Oh, yeah, here's one. Here's a good one. Who has been a person other than your parents who has made you a better person? That's pretty cool.
Yep.
Look, I don't think that would come as a surprise to say that it's probably Joey. Um, we've spent a lot of time together. We worked together, obviously, through all the three teams. In between Brisbane and Gold Coast, I'm not sure how many people know, but we went to Cyprus together and spent a few months out there with the team. That was a big life experience, that's for sure. And yeah, look, I would have to say probably Joey would definitely be the next best influence. I mean, people see the Joey that you see on the floor, screaming, yelling, passionate. They don't see the guy at home that, when I come home late at work, Biggie, what do you want for dinner? I'll make you some dinner. They don't see that. They don't see, Biggie, if you're going out tonight, mate, you need to lift home at 3 a.m, mate, ring me. They don't see that. He is a man of extremely high morals, and ethics. And I know that he's pulled me up throughout our journey together on things that I've done wrong. And, he's not afraid to say to me, look, that's the wrong thing to do. So look, he's definitely been, probably that person. So that's a good question.
Again, it comes down to the importance of the people in your lives having hard conversations with you, because the reality is the ones that care about you most have honest and not attacking conversations. They just keep it real. And sometimes I know when I was younger, I wish some of the coaches and people that I had involved in what I was doing, and even the situations I've had more recently, I wish people just were open and honest and said, hey, Craig, we think you're this, or hey, they don't realise I'm a pretty resilient person. I might at the time not necessarily, like I say, agree. That's why I like that approach of someone saying, don't take this the wrong way, but, because it preps me for the insult that's coming, but it's not necessarily an insult. Because one thing I've learnt about those perspectives, because you can't understand what other people perceive you as. So my point with, say, someone like Joey, like what they're seeing on the court is him in a certain situation. They're not going to see. They're not going to see that at home, and it doesn't surprise me neither. But here's the other thing: is some people don't know how to take that tough love neither, and they can take it the wrong way. So as a coach, I imagine he wouldn't be doing his job. And I say this to my athletes that I coach, because I do coach. If you want me to be talking to you, if I stop talking to you, that's a problem. You want me to be wanting you to be better. If I'm not in your ear trying to make you better, then we've got a problem. So that's my job. And if you don't like that as my job, trying to hold you to account or whatever, then sorry, it's not going to work. But it's an honest conversation.
But that also translates into life skills and life issues, not just on the floor as well. Yeah. So you're bang on. You're absolutely right.
Yeah. So coaching is not an easy gig, let alone trying to keep the best athletes in the country on task and interested. Because here's the thing, to be a coach at the level of, say, Joey or Rob Beveridge or whoever, actually, any NBL, pick any NBL or NBA coach, and that's another level, how do you keep them busy? Like your players, like engaged. You have to be a pretty good damn coach. I've watched Lamanis's training sessions, and the inspiration coming out of that for myself watching those sessions is that no two sessions are the same.
Yeah,
they're never the same. Like, they're teaching similar skills, but then they're keeping those players engaged, and that's a tough thing to do at that level. So let's excuse me, I just clear my throat, but let's see if you've got any other questions there. Excuse me. This bloody coronavirus. Don't go there too soon. So this is just orange juice, by the way. Just clarifying in case anyone's saying, "What's that?" He's drinking.
Ticker, again, a couple of good questions here. Would you like to work with Joey at an NBA club in the future? Absolutely, 100%. With or without Joey. So if you listen to Joey, I'm going with or without you. Yeah. And vice versa, though. So. Another one from Ticker is, do you think Joey would be interested in coaching the Australian Boomers at some stage? I'll tell you what, you get Joey on the show and you can ask him yourself, I think. That might be best. Looking good, Big Joe. Happy Easter. Thank you very much. Here's a good one. I could ask you so many loaded questions, but I will play properly. So there's the premise.
Yes.
What 3 off-court things do you think are important to build a winning culture in a sports club? It's a good question.
It is a great question.
And he should know because we've worked together plenty of times. And we've probably given the same speech to, most of our players that have come through our system together, me and this coach, who's also one of my best friends in Adelaide, actually. So I think he would know what my answers are. But the first one I always say, and it's probably on a holistic thing, and it's might be inappropriate to say here, but don't be a dick. It is basically the bottom line. Is if you're a good person, you treat people the way they want to be treated, that will breed goodness, pleasantry, harmony. Culture is such a loaded word, and I think people just throw it out like willy-nilly. But I think if if you're not an idiot and if you're a good person, you're going to succeed. That's what it'll come down to. The usual, work hard, that kind of stuff. That just happens. But don't be a dick, and you're going to be okay. And I've told that to state players, to juniors, to NBL imports when they come in. Obviously, it was my responsibility to go pick them up from the airport. I'm the first person that they see coming off the plane, and that's the only thing I tell them. Mm-hmm. If I'm going to give you one free bit of advice, it's that.
We'll clarify. There was two others, but we'll clarify when you say don't be a dick and you tell that to juniors, you don't mean Junior Albert, who you trained as a manager. It's like, I thought I'd get there and clarify that, so in case people think you're talking about the Bullets' current manager. But so
he's a very good man, and a very, very. You asked a question last week on the team manager.
Yes.
Question. And Jason, I think, had thrown out that I'd taught him everything he known and whatever. Like, that's not the case at all. We worked together back in the day, and I never saw it as teaching him or whatever. It was just we did it together as a team, and he has gone on to be probably the best in the league.
Mm. So interestingly, Sean Connolly, who asked a question earlier, he's a sort of team, an assistant manager with Junior as well at the moment. But there was, in that question, there was, what are the three things you saw as culture or building culture, I think? And you mentioned don't be a dick. What are your other two there? Are there other two?
I mean, there's so many. There really is. And I think to narrow it down to two would be a bit difficult. But if you start with that as the top, as the peak, I mean, everything that comes under it, it's gonna be okay.
Yeah. So I interestingly interviewed Kev Eastman, who was the assistant coach of the Celtics for 13 years and under Doc Rivers, and won an NBA championship when they had, I think it was Rondo and Paul Pierce and all those boys. Was it Ray Allen? Yeah. So I'm trying to remember. So, and he talks about culture, and he said exactly the same as you. Interesting. He was the ops manager for the Clippers too. He followed Doc to the Clippers. So that interview's up on my channel if anyone hasn't seen it. With Coach Kevin Eastman, he's big on words, and he's got a book on 25 power words, why the best are the best. I'll get that plug in there for him. But interestingly, he says that culture is a word that people just throw around a lot. But he said the two things he sees that are most important to building culture is people and values, having the same values. So getting the right people, so that don't be a dick, would be one of his for sure. And then you talked earlier about Joey having values, and you and him obviously have aligned to have worked over 20 years together. So if anyone wants to throw a question at Big Joe, I do want to ask how you're doing right now without the ability to hug people, because you're a hugger.
It's awful. It's awful. It is awful. Like I came home and I couldn't hug my mother. Yeah, it's tough. This whole thing is tough. It's tough for everybody. And yeah, it's not, doesn't discriminate against anyone. Money, no money, sports person, no sports person. This thing's getting you. Yeah. So we just got to stay home and wash our hands.
Yeah, that's it. That's the word on this. So interestingly, I reckon a good shirt would actually say, and I've said this a couple of times now. I think I said it last week or the week before in the thing. If viruses don't discriminate, why do we? Because really, there's nothing like they don't like a virus does not like that tells you we're all in it together. That it's not stopping at a border because you're Chinese or where did you say your heritage was? Actually, I was going to throw that one in there. I forgot. My memory's like
my father's Egyptian, my mother's Balinese, and I'm Brazilian.
Yeah, there you go.
That's why I'm so handsome.
So, and what's the words? The actual Tertzarkian. So
Tertzarkian is actually an Armenian name.
Thank you. So yeah. So if we want to see an example of the world being a what do they call that in the? It's not a mutt. That's a hard word to say. A bitza. I know what you meant. A bitza.
So we can leave that as
we'll leave that as it is. Yeah, I'm trying to be nice. Not everyone's as nice as you, Joe. So, any other questions there? I'm just looking through a list here. I actually asked.
I've got one here that says, "How much do you miss your Adelaide workmates?"
Oh yeah, here we
Oh,
go. That's got to be that's got a colleague.
I miss my Adelaide workmates very, 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 very much. Very, very good people. I was privileged to work with a lot of good people, from the Sixers to the Lightning to Basketball SA, and everyone in between. Adelaide people know their basketball. Their expectations of basketball and results are very high because they do know basketball at all levels. So yeah, the people that I was very, very privileged to work with there are all very, very, very good people, and I do miss them.
We talked about growing the league, the NBL, when it wasn't in its heyday, I suppose, the worst period before Kesselman took ownership. We talked about how you were worried about teams failing, from season to season. You were worried whether you'd have a team or a job next season. Now we've got a situation where we're looking at a team in Tasmania again, finally. So one question that I'm just going to throw out there: should Darwin, because you were manager of the Darwin Basketball Association, I don't know whether you know this, but in 2001 I did the operations manager up there.
Right. I heard you say that last week.
Yeah.
And I did a little background check on you with Rod Tremlett.
Yes, Rod. Yeah, he knows. Yeah, so that's our mutual friend. I have a couple, but that's, so he knows, he remembers me from there. And I caught up with him at the AOS at the coaching conference a couple of years ago, which was really, really cool to catch up with him and see what he's doing up there in the Northern Territory. But for those Northern Territory audience that you are hopefully watching, they're your friends, and maybe a couple of mutual that are mine. What do you reckon? Do we need to start seeing teams eventually in the ACT again? Do you ever think Northern Territory will ever have the population to justify the NBL team in the short term?
I think when I first got to Darwin, that was my tunnel vision because of my experience, in the league going to Darwin. Was sussing it out and seeing whether that was going to be a viable opportunity. I think population-wise, maybe not. I think government-wise, definitely. Like, it would have to be probably done in a similar model to Tassie with government, with significant government help. But then the other thing that I spoke about while I was there was looking for investment from North.
Yes, yeah.
Like you've got Asia.
See, I would think that having an Asian-like team or a group of the best Asians, given that they've relaxed the laws on imports, with the right mix of Australians thrown, domestically grown there in the NT, I reckon that it is possible if you reach out to Asia and actually say, well, this is technically an Asian team, but based out of the Northern Territory. That might bring a few more dollars. So, yeah.
It does. Bottom line is, it does come down to dollars, and there is a lot of it north of Darwin. In Asia. So as far as that, I think that would possibly make it. But again, you've been up there. I mean, Marara is probably too small.
Yeah.
Convention Centre, I don't think is the right configuration, because I had a look when I was up there. DBA Court 1 is magnificent, but you're still probably looking at maybe 2,000 at most.
Yeah.
Maybe.
You need a seating problem.
Do you turn the court around, and then put all around? It might bring it up to maybe 3,000. I'm not sure these days. But Kerry Savage, who is up there now, who came in after me, is also quite vigilant and driven to continue what I sort of, I wouldn't even say I started, but what I at least planted the seeds, where she is very vigilant. I think she was very, very close to getting just a game, a proper NBL game there this season. Yes. I mean, the season just finished.
Yes. Yeah.
And then I'm not sure what happened, but we had spoken about that, and I think it was really, really close to getting just the one game. I think that would be a start. The Blitz was there.
Yes.
Quite a while away now, I think.
You guys had the 36ers had a preseason game
We
against
did,
Philippine team a couple of seasons ago.
yeah, and we also did a top end challenge where we brought in Adelaide and Illawarra
Okay.
for a 3-game series. So there's definite appetite there. Yeah.
So, yeah, I just thought we'd speak to the NT question because by the way, that was a question when I was years ago, so 20 years ago now almost. So yeah, I did like the Northern Territory. There were things I liked about it, but I came home when the rent. Actually, I got out of the DBA because I couldn't work for 7 different bosses because that was what it was like with volunteer board. So I'm trying to make decisions, and every individual wanted their say. So nothing against those individuals. It just from an operational point of view, it became very hard when you take a call and someone would say, "What are you doing?" And you'd say it, and then they'd say, "Well, drop that, do this." Then you'd get a phone call from someone else saying, "Well, drop that, do this." So in the end, it just become in that situation back then. But I think Kerry, I think she was at Bundaberg. I think did she? Yeah, she was running Bundaberg for a while. So yeah, so they picked up a good opportunity for her to be up holding the fort up there. So have you got anyone else there? We've still got a fair few watching. So there's obviously some degree of interest in you, Big Joe. So that's a positive. So what? How big was his something? Because you journeyed with. Joey, Blaze, Bullets Blaze 36ers, he's just had his 500th NBL game. And obviously he's not coaching in the league currently. But how huge was that to celebrate that with him, that journey?
Oh, it was, he's not a milestone guy. So, his 100th, 200th, 300th, 400th, 450th was nothing really, to be honest, to him as well. And then 500 it's
a big number.
He's one of 3.
Yeah.
That really cements him up there with 3 of the best. So I think regardless of what was going to happen, I don't think I was going to miss that one.
Yeah.
With me, and there's a group of us. Obviously we're close knit group, and we weren't going to miss that one. So
yeah, because that was played at Perth, I believe, in Perth.
It was played at Perth, and it was at Rack Arena. And for me also, it was a bit of a two-edged sword because I've never been. When I left the league as a team manager, Perth had moved out of Challenge Stadium to Rack Arena, so I've never been to that magnificent venue.
Yeah.
So I thought, well, let's kill 2 birds with 1 stone, I suppose. And Troy, the CEO of the Wildcats, and the entire organisation, people hate them because they are so good. But let me tell you, they certainly with me and the group of friends that we went with, they had us sitting courtside. He came and personally welcomed us as we walked in through the venue, walked us to our seats. The respect that they showed me was incredible.
So professional franchise, that's the level that you would expect of a championship team. So they've demonstrated that time and time again. And talk about culture, that's the sort of culture that you actually want. It's not all roses, sadly, in the league, unfortunately, because Joey isn't back at the 36ers, which was mutual. But but obviously him and Bevo, being out of the league at the moment, trying to reinvent himself in New Zealand, that it's an opportunity. I think Joey, personally, from what I can see, I think Joey was ready for a break. I don't know whether that's personally or not. I think that he was I think sometimes change is as good as a holiday. So I think for him, where he's at right now, and look, I haven't sort of had any commentary on it because I'm not that in the circle, but at the end of the day, I think that it doesn't hurt. I hope he gets back in the league because he deserves to be back in the league, as do Bevo. That's my opinion. So I'm just putting it out there. But that's a spectator and a commentator opinion, not a mate opinion. There's no bias there. It's just they're 2 great coaches in our NBL history.
And even better people. That's the thing about those 2 blokes. They're genuinely good blokes.
Yeah. So if anyone's got a question, We're at an hour, just over an hour, actually. Yeah, just 1:01. We've been going for an hour, mate. That's good. So, look, I can go a little while longer, but we need some questions to be thrown at Big Joe if you've got anything you want to ask. Now, Big Joe has been involved in the sport as a manager for, what is it? Over two decades, 2.5 probably, if you take into the women's NBL.
You're telling people how old I am now.
Yeah, no, well, you're 20, mate. I said that earlier. So you were in nappies when you did your first managerial role, yeah? So I've pretty much exhausted all my questions, so I hope that someone else throws some at you. But so what are the plans for you? Oh, here we go. Here we go. I hope he's been watching and seeing how it's done.
Who is your favourite roommate?
Oh, here we go.
Oh, I've had some really good ones. Jace. I don't know if I can have a favourite. I've lived with Gibbo. I've lived with Jason, obviously. I've lived with Joey. More recently in Adelaide, just before I left, I lived with a guy called Will Smith. Not the real Will Smith, but a Will Smith. He wasn't a basketball player, though, so maybe he might be my favourite because he could actually cook. And so his lovely wife could actually cook as well. Something more than toasties, put it that way. That was a limit of Jason's cooking.
I was going to ask, how was Jason's cooking back in the day? Because we didn't really... I think he had the opportunity to say a couple of things. He was pretty behaved, actually. He's pretty good. But how was his cooking, mate? What was? Give us some inside information now. You've got the mic on some of Jason Caddy's habits at home.
His cooking. Look, Jason was a very, very good roommate. I am a clean freak.
Mm-hmm. He mentioned that.
Hey?
He mentioned that. He said you were a clean freak.
And Jason bought into that straight away. So that was good. So we didn't have any angst on that side of it. It was different living because when Gibbo and I lived together, mate, we were living in this palatial 5-bedroom mansion on the canal when we were at the Gold Coast Blaze, living well outside my means, but the house was incredible. And we had he was on one end of the house, obviously facing the water. That's fine. I was on the other side. We had two living, like we had the kitchen in the middle too. It was very separate in that house setup. And then when Kadee and I moved in together, we moved into the Meriton at Broadbeach, which was provided by the Blaze, but it was a 2-bedroom apartment. So we were pretty close, obviously, close proximity. So it was a bit different to what we had, when Gibbo and I lived together. But Jason's cooking was non-existent at that time.
Yeah.
It may have
changed. How old was he? Then would he have been? Because that was as a rookie, he just come in 1 year, and he'd come in after his injury, or actually his car accident.
So he might have. Jason, you might have to answer that if you're still there. How old are you at the Blaze? Maybe I'd like to say maybe 19 even. He might have been that young.
Yeah.
I'm
wouldn't expect him to have a big...
No, not at all.
Not at that age. So Toasties, I was probably the same at 19. Maybe not even that. Maybe a boiled egg.
And 2 minute noodles was probably the extent.
Which was
because we lived at Broadbeach as well, and we were on the Gold Coast. Oh, 18, there you go, just come back. So he was 18 when we first lived together. So Toasties was the extent of his knowledge. But again, living on the Gold Coast, we also didn't, as a collective couple, didn't cook much anyway because we had that much food downstairs, so there wasn't much need for cooking.
Yeah, so I've just got a comment in there saying how refreshing it is to have, guys involved in the NBL talking away from their roles in the NBL just as people, being people. Nice. So yeah, that's one of my friends who actually helps coach some of my junior teams. His 2 kids are in my rookies program, and I did play with him for a stint. But he won a game of on the rack the other week with my senior players, and I think I got knocked out first. And And they're all laughing at that, and he ended up winning. And he's like, 3-pointers were never his thing. So I don't know. He must be practicing.
They were never mine either.
He's like, I don't know how he won, but he did. But he's probably listening to that. He won because he got all his threes in. So, but what else is there? So, shout out to everyone who's joined us: Daniel Bolton, Jessica Thomas, Steve Catlin. I'm just giving some shout outs. Mark Glenday. I don't know if you know Mark. He used to take the photos. Yeah.
Take photos, yeah. Very good at it.
Yeah. So he still does. Actually, he was the head coach at one of the schools I coach at. And I've known him for a long time. And I actually spoke, you'd know Gavin Dela Cruz as well. He's an assistant with Gavin at GDC Fitness. So I actually connected with Gav the other day as well. If Mark's watching still, he will be happy to hear that probably, because that's his assistant, Mark. So shout out to Mark. And who you got there? You can give some shout outs, mate. Just acknowledge that they've taken the time to watch.
Well, just again, Ash Jones, people who are just saying like, legend, great to hear you. You look great. It's very, very kind. Paul Foster from up in Townsville. David Baines was my partner in crime at the Lightning. I used to play music, and he was our court announcer. We would always fight over the intro song for the Adelaide Lightning. He would always win. Dave, thank you for listening. John Wright is a big basketball name down in Adelaide. What socks are you wearing? Obviously, my fanfare, I think, brought it up in one of his posts about my dress sense. It starts with the socks. So what am I wearing right now? Yellow with cherries, John. The usual, actually. They're my usual socks. Paul Foster, how good are your toasties? The best. Yes, they are. Yeah, that's pretty much it.
So I had
I don't know how many people are on. I don't know how to tell how many people are on, but
yeah. So I've still got a fair amount. So while they're still there, we'll keep chatting. I've got about 30 still, mate. So that's huge.
More than Jason, right?
Actually, I'll say yes and no because it fluctuates. So if Jason's there, I hope he's doing all right and staying safe and healthy and getting some exercise. That goes out to all the athletes who may be watching tonight's stream. I hope you're getting the opportunity. I know you're doing it pretty hard at the moment, as we all are, not having basketball and having to watch reruns. So it's all playing. I don't play 2K, but I'm sure there's a lot of people out there playing 2K at the moment.
I bought a PlayStation.
Oh yeah,
so the other day, and I'm not a gamer at all, but I thought I'm going to give it a try.
Well, put it out there. You're going to have to connect with some people. Anyone who knows Joe that wants to connect with him and play some 2K or whatever he's going to play. I've actually been on Warzone recently. I haven't played COD for a while, but that's a first-person shooter. So I've been on Warzone on Xbox, but it's always good fun to connect with friends and things to do that stuff. So those who aren't aware, I'm doing the live stream every Thursday with someone like a guest. I've chosen. This is the third one I've done, second week. If you're interested and you've enjoyed the conversation that we've had with Big Joe today, then make sure you give us a thumbs up and let us know. Put a comment in the comments. If you do have a question and we've missed it because the chat's scrolling, then we will, at the end of the conversation, Joe and myself will go through comments and see if there's anything there that's relevant that we can answer if you have asked a question and we haven't answered it in the conversation.
All the questions that are on there will be on thereafter?
That's correct.
Oh, okay.
So you can go through. So if you have asked a question and we've missed it, or on another, like I know Ozswish, I haven't been watching the chat, which I had said earlier. If there are questions on there, I do apologise. I haven't got that tab open. But if there are questions on there, we will go through those. The ones, obviously, there's going to be more relevant to Joe, but I often go through just to acknowledge that I saw that you were in there. I know some people have been saying hello to me, so I do apologise. Try and shout people out. I do this every Thursday night. I'll probably continue it after the COVID crisis, but this has been really good to allow people to connect with, like people like Joe, to connect with each other and engage in something that's a little bit different with someone that you know. So, and we get to hear a bit of the backstory of these guys. So live streaming with friends next Thursday night. I haven't picked anyone yet, So I have some ideas. I might even hit up Joey and see what he's doing, or Rob Beveridge. What do you call Rob? What's the nickname for Bevo? Like, don't call him
Bull.
the Bull.
The Bull.
Yeah. So I might connect with someone like that. If they're available, then I'll certainly be keen to have a chat with them.
Oh, here's a good one. A couple of good ones. Rod Tremlett. Ask Big Joe about the Vegas Skillet squad. Yeah, we'll get to that in a minute. But this other one, fanfare, and this is a good one, is tell us about your time at the Caps and your part in their journey to the championship. So that's pretty cool. And on that, like when I was at the Caps through basketball, through my time working as regional services manager with Basketball Queensland, I ran the QBL program for the Brisbane Capitals. I took Trevor Lidstone, and we took a punt on Jeff Tarrant as head coach. And you know what? Championship or not, like him or not like him, he's going to go down as probably one of the winningest coaches in QBL history. Mm-hmm. Fantastic. So that sort of was my start at the Caps program. Was we went through the interview process, appointed Jeff, and then we went about, again, Trevor and I, just trying to professionalize as best we could what the Caps QBL game night would look like. Obviously, I enjoy playing music at the games, so I was probably never going to leave that desk. But again, in event management or whatever you want to call it, we had a really, really good team that, you know, from setup all the way to game management, where while I was the QBL operations manager, whatever the title it was, I really did nothing but play music on game night. Like that's how good our team
worked
was.
Together. Yeah.
You know, I had Wayne, who was, you know, currently helping with the Bullets. You know, he was instrumental in volunteering, you know, to setting up that atrocious grandstand that comes out on court 2.
Yeah. Like
that thing it's a pig of a thing to bring out. You know, Sean Connolly was part of that crew. Jordan Christensen, V-Dog, Linny Tapp. I mean, she ran the game. She ran game night. I'm talking everything from door person to if there's an issue at the canteen to an issue at score table. And I felt helpless because I'm sitting, you know, at Auchenflower. You're right at the top of the grandstand.
Yeah.
I'm just sitting there watching her, for example, run around like a headless chook, but it just worked. Mm-hmm. And you know, that I think was a testament to the success that we did have. Again, we didn't win a championship during my time there, but geez, we came close.
Yeah.
Every single year, like consistently, we were in the mix. So that was my time at the Caps. I really, really loved it there. Being a Southern Districts junior, you know, and having my name up in lights, you know, there, and then coming over to BBI was a bit, I don't know, a bit of not a challenge, but it was a bit weird, I guess.
Well, they're rivals for years. Well, still are.
Correct. So when I left Spartans and went to the Gold Coast, that was part of my Blaze job. So I didn't feel like I was doing the wrong thing by Sparta.
Yeah.
But going to BBI, I suppose it was similar to BQ job. But so look, I think again, Trevor and I probably set a really solid foundation for the Caps to have the success that they currently have. I think what I was most grateful for was when I had left and the Caps made the finals, for example, in Mackay. I was already in Darwin. Mm-hmm. Trevor had invited me to come down for the best of 3 series and go to Mackay. Like that again just means a lot, you know. And he said to me, I'll never forget what he said to me after we won Game 2 in Mackay. You know, we had a bit of a man hug together, and I said to him, mate, I said, thanks for having me, for inviting me. And he says, mate, we started this, mm-hmm. So it's just, you know, makes sense that you're here. So like that meant a lot.
Yeah. So one of the things that I had noticed the improvement at the QBL level, and one thing that I like, and I think, and you sort of hit the nail on the head when you're talking about Perth and the way they do things, and I said that's a professional thing, is I actually have a saying is make the NBA where you are. That
Yep.
if you want and aspire to be in the NBA, then the way you, like, I'm talking players and coaches and approaches, then make it where you are. And when you raise the bar, I went to Caboolture after being at Wizards just for the SBL, and my goal there, actually first year, knowing I was building a new team, and I brought in an import who was purely to put bums on seats. 7 dunks a game, couldn't play defense very well. I'll say it like that. But I knew what I was. That was about building over the longer term. I'd made a decision at the end of that season not to continue. But the point is that same approach is you to build a successful program. It takes time, and you've got. And the other thing, one thing I will say is when I was my small stint at that club. As a coach there, we put a lot of things in place, and the team and the game night was the same, went smoothly. But I remember you and I were both court announcers in the 2000s. You were court announcing for Spartans, and I was court announcing for Wizards. I think I did 4 or 5 years at the Wizards QBL, and there was one night where you asked if I could fill in for you, but I was already coaching on a Friday night. It was a Friday night game. You couldn't make it. So that was a compliment for you to ask me, because I didn't know, because I felt you were one of the best announcers, and you obviously, I felt honoured. I don't know where I was in the...
Are still listening right now, by the way.
I was going...
You mentioned that you thought I was one of the best announcers. David Baines, please tell me you're still listening.
So I took it as a compliment, but then I don't know how far I was down in your list. I was thinking, oh, Big Joe's contacting me to see if I can court announce his game.
It's a tough gig. Court announcing's a tough gig, so you would have been higher.
Yeah. So you, interestingly, one of the things that I love to see, and always, if you're on social media and things are streaming, and you're streaming the NBL, and they start to play Sweet Caroline, and they across every league, or if you're on a live stream when that happens, everyone says, "Oh, Big Joe's on the music."
Every time. And I mean, you should see that, like, I have friends that are overseas that go to games, players that have played for me that are now, whenever that song comes on anywhere, the amount of times I'll get a short video of it, and they'll send it to me, and maybe surely you're not doing the music here. Like, it's incredible. So it's...
Well, how's this one?
Hates it. Joey hates it. I'll tell you right now.
Really?
He absolutely hates it. But there's a lot of people that love it. So
I grew up with Neil Diamond because my mum's an absolute fan, and I absolutely love Neil Diamond. So, and there's a lot of people on the planet who do. So,
yeah.
So just outed myself as a Neil Diamond fan. But interesting.
My go-to was The Gambler first.
Oh yeah.
It used to be The Gambler, and then Sweet Caroline came on, and that was it. It's never gone back after that.
So interestingly, I was watching the Australia USA game. I wasn't there, but they played that, and I was watching. It must have been a live stream somewhere, because again, I was on the amount of people all asking if Joe was on the music at the Australian. It is gold. It's absolutely gold, but it's a legacy and something that's associated and synonymous with you and your name now. Is you have this tie to the Australian basketball culture and Neil Diamond that you probably never even knew you were going to have. So it's pretty amazing, actually, when you think about it, just from playing a song. So
over and over and over and over again.
But did you see that he remade the song and threw in?
Don't know if I like it.
Yeah, no, I'm not much on it neither.
It's not broke. Don't change it.
That's it. So he changed the song for COVID. So if people haven't gone and looked at that, that's on his Twitter feed. And I shared one ahead of our interview. That was in, I think it's Corsk is the place in Ireland where they're singing. I don't know if you saw that, where I tagged you. They're all singing, and the question was, can we get you to sing Sweet Caroline? And I think I know the answer to that one.
Hell no. What is wrong with you?
So we're not going to embarrass ourselves by having anyone other than Neil Diamond sing that, and he's not here tonight. So, but I'll just go through, check that there's no other questions. Oh
yeah, here's one.
Yeah.
Just about what about working for 2 days with no sleep? So So again, short version on this is it's a pretty cool story. This one we had. This is when we were at Titanium still. So there was myself, Troy, Reese, and Scott. So there was 4 of us. Friday night. I'm pretty sure Friday night was like R&B Fridays. No, Thursday night I think was R&B Fridays at Titanium. Thursday, then Saturday night was a Sixers game. Sunday was I don't know, something ridiculous. But we knew that it was going to be hectic.
Yeah.
So we had started that Friday morning at 5 a.m. and went right through back to back until Monday lunchtime was when we had left the venue.
I vaguely remember your posts of that because you literally posted the journey from the start of the Friday with the setup of whatever it was, the concert or the gig.
It was incredible.
And then the next day, the rollout of the floor. I don't even know whether was it a time lapse that you guys did, or did you did a time lapse?
We put up a time lapse.
Yeah, I remember seeing it, and then the take up of the floor, and then the next event. But I didn't know you went 2 days. Was it 2 days without sleep? Is that legit, or was it?
Yeah, we went around the clock. Troy and I were around the clock. I slept on the carpet tiles, for example, for a half hour, for example, there. And Troy ended up sleeping in. There was this big tub that came in that had the drapes in it. So we took all the drapes out, and he kipped for maybe half hour at most. It was incredible. But again, it was all fun. It was all part of the job. And I mean, we had a few days off afterwards and what have you. But I mean, that's part of the whole event side of the role. Like it was something that we just did. It was a lot of fun.
So one thing that I noticed when you went to Darwin, actually, these are just observations, having sort of had a stint in some admin roles myself, is I'm going to say it like this: watching you work when you're sharing and posting is good and refreshing because you get shit done. So.
Oh, thank you. It's not always the case, though. Don't believe everything that I post.
Yeah. So one of them recently was the roof that was leaky that you said had been leaking for a long time, and you got it attended to.
Yep.
Yeah, in South Australia there. And those things are frustrating for people who, from a service delivery point of view, where they're the recipients of that service. And you recognise, like, when someone does come into an environment or an organisation and listens to people about their problems and then chips them away and solves them. And that's what I see from the outside looking in. So I don't know if that is your approach, but it's certainly how it looks, that you take a heap of problems, that you sit, listen, take a heap of things that need solving, and then you work your way through that list like a to-do list or to get done list. That's one thing, bit of a tip. I don't have a to-do list. I have a to get done list. It's a little bit of a different terminology. So
that's a really good way of putting it, and that's probably an accurate way of how I certainly went into the role at BSA at Basketball South Australia with that mindset. In hindsight, I probably wished I had done a little bit more, a little quicker. But I'm happy with how it played out in the end. And that we did achieve some things. And it is nice. I'm very, very proud of the team, that was with me. I don't like to say my team, like our team that we had at the stadiums, role. There's 4 of us in that group. To speak to them and hear that they're still chipping away and they're actually getting things done that I guess I had sort of started but just never got to finish. And I'll give you something. It's something as simple as, there's light switches at the stadiums, for example, and they're accessible to anybody.
Yeah.
So I went and got a first aid box, got the hole cut out the back to drill it into the wall. So now it's lockable.
Yeah.
One of the guys rang me 2 days ago and said that we're at the stadium now, for example, we're about to put it on. Like, to hear that is pretty, it's nice.
Yeah.
That it's still going. You know what I mean? So that's what it is. It would have been nice to do a little bit more. But again, I'm happy with how it is.
Okay, so
oh God,
Steve Catlin. Have you got one there, or you? I've got Steve.
I'm waiting for you.
Yeah, Steve Catlin is, and I've seen a post of this. So I don't know whether this is the same game he's talking about, but question for Joe. When was your last basketball game and how did you go? So I'm assuming he means playing.
I think I did post it. I think it was maybe 2 years ago at Auckland Flower, Court 2 for the Mighty Dragons at Auckland Flower. And Craig Leaney, funnily enough, who you said was on before, did a really, really nice post afterwards saying, I've never seen like members and executive members from 4 different clubs cheering for one person. Like, you know what I mean? Like it was 4 different clubs represented there that was there just to watch me. Because I also did Facebook that journey to playing again, my first time playing in 17 years.
How did that feel for you to actually step on the court, just to be able to be part of a team and play again?
It felt amazing. I was nervous, obviously, and I was not that good, but that's okay. But just to be able to get up and down and be part of that environment was incredible. And again, to have that court, I mean, you've been up there at court too. There's not a lot of space, but like it was chockers. It was really, really cool. Like I went home and there was 250 comments, on Facebook, and I'm not ashamed to say that I was sitting there and I teared up reading some of them because like it was a big thing personally.
Yeah. Well, I saw it and I saw the post. The post is still up there. If people haven't seen it, of you shooting a free throw, which we will say you made. I'm guessing you made it. Yeah, there you go. So I don't know what you scored, but you definitely scored.
I scored 3.
Nice.
3.
That's awesome, mate. So yeah, no, it's interesting. I just a side story. I played a game probably 2 years ago. Is the last time I played a proper game, and I got a team together. And I used to come on the last 2 minutes of every game. So I went from years ago starting, and now I was like last 2 minutes, and my teams would be up by 20 or whatever. That my mates, and they'd just keep passing me the ball until I hit one. And I'd make it, and everyone would cheer, and it was like being in under 12s, mate. It was like the funniest experience, like because I actually had some leagues in like Caloundra and that where I led leagues in scoring and things when I was younger. And to go from a situation where you could put the ball in the hole to one where it'd take you 7 shots to make one, and everyone would just cheer when you finally did. They
did. I've actually got a video of that shot. And it got a little rowdy up there. It was nice. Like I said, it was just a good feeling.
So it's one of those journeys that, you're part of the game. You are, as a manager, you want, like that experience for you, given that you had weighed the 285 kilos to then have the ability to jump on a court where you don't weigh that anymore. And you're at a point where you can actually play without any damage or anything to your body. That's pretty good. That's an amazing experience. Something that like a decade or more ago you probably would have never thought you'd have again. That's why it's such an important and significant event. So,
like I said, I'm doing things now that I hated to do. Even something as simple as walking, like in Adelaide, for example. I mean, we would beach walk daily. Back in the day, if I didn't get a car park 5 meters to the door, I wouldn't go shopping.
Okay.
I think things like that, it's been incredible.
Yeah, so that is amazing, and they're things that we don't necessarily know that, for you to actually, share with us is just a demonstration of how serious for you that actually got to get to that point where you would make a decision if you couldn't get that close park that you just wouldn't make.
I just wouldn't go. Yeah.
Yeah. So what's your advice to anyone? There may be people. This is the thing: is there may be people in the situation similar to you where you were carrying that weight, and obviously your journey with your banding and everything has been an amazing one. It's not always that easy. You've got to still keep to your diet and understand that it's something that it's a lifestyle change as well. So what are the changes you've made to your lifestyle around that weight loss?
to be honest, that's probably a factor or a side of my journey that definitely needs improvement. Is the nutrition side of things. The mental side of things is, before I would eat 2 packets of Tim Tams. Now I can eat 4 biscuits of Tim Tams. To me, that's okay, but it's not.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And I'm now maybe 3 years down from the excess skin removal.
Yeah.
And I'm still in that mental mindset that because I can only eat small bits regularly, I would rather fill that small bits with chocolate than with broccoli.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so as a result, then I'm not eating a lot. So the process, I'm not getting bigger or fatter again, but I'm also not getting the nutrition that I need. You know, and I know that is still a problem now. It's probably a little bit less now because I'm at home, so I have mum's cooking.
Yeah.
And you know, I had a couple of really, really close, good friends of mine in Adelaide that would help me out on that front a lot. But it's still not right. Obviously, it can still do with improving. That's for sure.
So I've got a question. I had Steve ask if he could ask another question. So in answer to that, Steve, yeah, you can. So it's not one question for everyone. It's like go to sleep. Yeah, no, he'd be editing video, mate. He's probably analysing this right now just to see to see how you're going. But interestingly, a interview I did with a sports psychologist, Dr. Joe Lukens, who's actually friends with Paul Foster up there. She's she worked with the Cowboys in Townsville and also the Fire in the women's NBL. She's their sports psychologist. She talks about if you want to change a habit, she has this strategy called the goal when then strategy. So what it basically says, if you want to achieve a goal, then you've got to create a trigger for yourself so that, like you're talking about your Tim Tams there, she says, so if your goal is to not eat the Tim Tams, it would be your goal is to not eat the Tim Tams. So when you grab a Tim Tam, then do this. Now, I wouldn't say grab broccoli. That's not what I'm saying. But it might be when you go to grab the Tim Tam, then grab an apple instead. So it's this whole approach of changing habits and behaviour and linking it to the trigger. But basically saying whatever the goal is, when you do something, then do something different. So as you go to put your hand on that fourth, it might even be only have 2. So when you go to put your hand on the third one, it might be say grab something else. So it's just a method that interestingly has worked for me with some of the habits that I have. So I listened to that in the podcast that I did with her, or the episode that I did with her. She offers a lot of good tips for athletes if they want to check out that on the YouTube channel. Just so, by the way, I just last episode I spoke with a professional eater. So
I remember you telling that to Jason. Yeah.
Yeah. So Randy Santel, the interview that just went up, he's a professional eater. But he won a Spartacus. He was on the TV show Spartacus. He actually was overweight and a football player in the US 10 years ago. And he worked it all off and became ripped and won this national body challenge. He then entered a food challenge with a mate who actually they won, and he realised he was good at eating. But what he knew is he could work it off because he'd learned how to work it off. So he's actually become a nutritionist and a dietitian, but he has like 1 million followers, over 1 million on Facebook and 1 million on subscribers on YouTube who follow not only his eating challenges, he's done 829 across the world, 37 countries, but he also helps and they follow his weight loss journey. So yeah, so that's, I just, we're talking about diet and weight and things like that. I just interviewed him, that went up this week. So if anyone wants to check that out, I found it interesting because I didn't even know professional eating was actually a thing. But he's making money out of doing it. That's the restaurant challenges. Some of them put up money, and obviously he gets paid appearance fees now because all his fans come and watch him take on a challenge. But he lost one a pancake one. He has trouble with pancakes, by the sounds of things. So,
I
Steve.
reckon the pancake house in on the Gold Coast back in the day.
Oh, yes. So one thing I noticed with you is I said earlier, you're very grateful. Show a lot of gratitude. And given the roles that you do, and actually I would like to share a story about KFC and CJ, but I'll hopefully get him on. You probably know the story.
Get him to do that one.
I'll get him to do that. But what I'll say is, one thing I notice is that you are forever thanking those that support you and or the organisations you belong to. How important is it, just in general, do you think, for people to acknowledge the support and the help that they give each other? Do you think that's something you see enough? I know you do it, but do you think it happens enough?
No, not at all.
And why do you do that? Why do you? That's been one of your modus operandis or eyes or whatever it is for a long time. Why? Who taught you that, or was that a learned thing, or is it something you just see value in?
Look, it was definitely the way I was brought up. My parents have always taught me to be grateful, to be thankful for, the good and the bad that comes in your life. I always find that by showing, gratitude to people that give you so much, because every single person on earth is overworked and underpaid. All of us. Mm-hmm. In any sector, we all are overworked and underpaid. That's life. So I think I find that I feel if I thank people to a point where I could then feel comfortable knowing that I can count on them at any time for anything, and it would be unquestioned, because I am thankful for them giving their time, whether it's volunteer time, whether it's paid, but their effort, their knowledge, they don't have to do it. And so I am genuinely, when I thank people, I'm absolutely genuine, for their efforts in whatever it is that they've done, whether it's paid or unpaid. It's just, it shows gratitude.
Yeah. So interesting thing about time is it is our most valuable resource. So it is important, if anyone's listening, that you do appreciate and acknowledge people's time. One of the biggest problems I see right now is all the people are on their devices when they're in the company of someone else. To me, that is an insult to the person you're actually with. And the reason that is because the person that is most valuable at that point in time, because they're giving you time, is the person that you're actually with. I'm saying that because I keep seeing you look down at your phone. No, I'm joking.
And it's only because you're telling me to, because Sean Connolly again has just said, how about that bulletproof windows on your car?
He's got that one on this. He's trying to get both of our attention. I was going to go there. Steve's got another one for you, but go. What's with this bulletproof windows?
Mate, and this is when I was living with Jason. So I had a Ford Falcon station wagon. And I'm telling you, the windows on that thing were bulletproof because they were so black. Mm-hmm. Like they were illegally dark. But let me tell you, they were that black in the broad daylight you couldn't see in. Mm-hmm. So to me, that made them bulletproof.
Yeah, nice.
And so that's what it was.
Yeah. So.
What Steve got? I'm scared now.
No, Steve's pretty good actually. He's behaving himself. Any stories from being the team manager of any Queensland state team? So I don't know whether that's a reference to one of his teams, but
lots of stories. I don't know if we can.
Which teams have you actually done for Queensland? Actually, because you have done a couple. You've been manager.
So I started in my first state team was in 2007 under 18s with Ron Radliff, Rob Scheibner, Dave Mitchell, and that group was your Mitchell Youngs, your Brendan Tees, I'm pretty sure was that group.
Yeah.
Which in 2 years after that, in under 20s in Townsville, we won. Yep. We, funnily enough, beat Jason Caddy's New South Wales team.
Funny.
So I did that one, and then I think I did another 3, maybe. Mm-hmm. One was with Steve, I'm pretty sure. The Sammy Mack one, I think, which was is Steve. I hope Steve's still on. Maybe you can correct me. I'm pretty sure it's the Sammy Mack one with Will Magnay.
Yeah.
Group, I think. Look, stories. I mean, there's stories galore.
That would have been under 18s, I would think, because he went off
Yeah.
to the AIS
Yeah.
that season, or after that season. So, so that would have been. Oh, I don't even want to pick a date, but yeah, it would have been under 18s. I think Sam had that
So I
team.
think I did so 4 under 18s with Queensland, 1 under 20s, and then 2 under 18s with SA Metro.
Yeah, throw you in the deep end. Were there any favourites, or are they all good? Diplomatic? Did you?
They were all good. There were some favourite players, no doubt about it. And again, like I said at the start, there were some players that I'm glad I'm never going to see again.
Mm-hmm.
That's life.
Yeah.
But during the period that we were together, you'd be none the wiser. They were always well fed, and their uniforms smelled nice.
Yeah.
I mean, that's my job. So
that is. So we've had a few other basketball people join: Darren Roach, Rory Johansson, and Peter Lonergan. So Lono.
Lono.
Yeah. So
Lono was instrumental with us looking after us in Italy for the while we were there for the World Uni Games. He provided tremendous support for the group, for the coaching staff. We lost our bags for 6 days on the way over there. A couple of the boys, one of which was the uniform bag.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
And the game, I'll never forget, the game was Sunday, 3:00, and it was our first game, and the bag still hadn't arrived, and Lono had me, obviously gave me a bunch of great plan B ideas, one of which was to get to some shops and just buy 10 black shorts, as long as they're the same. Unfortunately, Lono had to coordinate, because it's a FIBA thing, like he had to liaise with FIBA to try and get a dispensation, so we were allowed to play out of uniform. And then, so that game was at 3. We had to leave the hotel at 1, and I kid you not, at about 11:30, I get a phone call from Bevo, because I'm at the shops, saying, "Come home, the bags have arrived." I said, "I don't believe you. Take a photo so that I don't leave until I get the photo." I took the photo, and it was there, and we made it just by the skin of our teeth. But I know Lono was instrumental in getting all that dispensation approved, because, like I said, because it was a FIBA thing.
Yeah.
It's not just a, hey, John Smith, can we just get away with this? It's
What happened with the bag? Was it the airport or something, like flying in? Does it get lost in like the luggage? Wow, that's
exactly what happened.
Yeah, I'd be buying a set ahead of going over there and having them there before I arrive. I think.
Yeah.
Like
So we had there was my equipment bag, so my personal bag made it, so that was okay. One of our players and one of our assistant coaches went 6 days with just what they flew in.
Oh, wow.
And that was a testament to them too, and the group to rally around them to just go and get them some toothpaste and some toothbrush. It was hell for them. It certainly was hell for them. So the first 6 days.
So this is the stuff people don't hear about. That what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas. It's like what happens in Spain stays in Spain.
It was a nightmare. I'll tell you, it was a nightmare.
So, a question, I saw a photo of that trip. I'm not sure if it was on your feed or someone else's, may have been someone else's, of a ship or a boat or something. Did you guys stay on a ship?
Hell no.
I was going to say, I don't know what that post was. Do you know the reference?
No. They had 2 ships there, and that was the village.
Okay.
But because the basketballers are huge people,
they
wouldn't have fitted onto the cabin beds, I guess.
Was that their plan?
Basketball was in a hotel, volleyball was in a hotel, and I think there were maybe 2 other sports. Everyone else were on the 2 ships, which initially, as a group, we wanted to be on the ship.
Okay.
Because just can you imagine the social activities that would have happened around the basketball and training, of course. Turned out that it was a blessing in disguise that we weren't on the ship, because it did allow, we still obviously got up to shenanigans, as you do. Nothing bad, but, it turned out to be better at the hotel anyway, when they got the bus schedules sorted. Let me tell you, we were late everywhere. The transport, so here's something that the folks here would know. The transport there was a massive, we were late everywhere. We had fights with them. It was funny, but it was frustrating.
It's interesting that I actually think it was Will Magnay's feed that I think I saw that ship. So it makes sense now because I thought, what was that all about? But
Yeah.
yes.
No, that was the official Australian Olympic Village, or Olympic Village. Sorry,
Yes.
you know what I mean,
World champ,
village.
yeah.
And yeah, I mean, it would have been incredible to be on that thing. Let me tell you, I can only imagine what went on.
We've got still a few people watching, mate. So they're obviously being entertained because we've got about 30 still. So on my feed. So if anyone's got any questions for Joe, be more than happy to take a few more. We're into about an hour and 45 minutes. So as far as if we're looking at time, you versus Jason Kadee, you've surpassed the time limit there for sure. But so I might actually give it a wrap up. If anyone does have any questions, then throw them at us. Some quick fire questions for Joe, and otherwise, because at some stage we've got to get to bed, mate. Otherwise, it'll be another one of those 2 days sleepless events. So a marathon. But I'll try and I
will say this though, that to the people that have commented, and if we haven't acknowledged, I'll make sure that I'll take the time to go through them and acknowledge that for sure. Thank you.
Yeah. So, and thanks for those who have taken the time to watch tonight and or ask questions and be involved in the live stream. As I said, I will be doing this again next Thursday night with another guest. I might hit up Joey, or I may hit up Rob. I'm not sure who it will be, but whether either of those will be available. But there are a number of people in the list that I could go through. There's a couple of people that were meant to come into my studio who haven't been able to do for obvious reasons. So, who I also wanted. In fact, Jason was one of those, actually. That's why he was our backup last week in case ours didn't go ahead. So I'd already approached him to come into the studio, and then
he's used to playing second fiddle to me, so that's fine.
Well, he was coming into the studio, Joe. So, so I'm just pointing that one out. But no, so this has been, in a way, this has been really good. Being able to connect with people via Skype. There are other ways I possibly could do it, but for my equipment to be able to live stream across multiple platforms, unfortunately tonight I will post this on YouTube, but it's not live on YouTube. I do get interactions on YouTube. I've got to work out why this app's updated and what problems I've got there, so that's for me to sort out. But if people are watching, please, and you're enjoying this and you want to join me again next Thursday night, 8 p.m. is when I'm trying to get it done. So 8 p.m. on a Thursday, we'll be live streaming with friends again. And also I will be uploading, actually I spoke with a person who has bipolar, is my next interview on Sunday. And he started a charity in the US called You Don't Fight Alone. So he's turned his living with bipolar and the fact that he's tried to commit suicide multiple times. So it's a mental health topic. He's actually created an organisation and has a board and is the president of that organisation to help people in the aftercare, because that's where he felt he would get his care when he was struggling with bipolar. Then he would come out of the system and then there was nothing for him. And he said that he's created something that can help people outside of their care after they've had their manic or depressive episode. So if you want to hear about someone's experience. Interestingly, the Undertaker I interviewed today as well also has been diagnosed with bipolar too. There's no relationship between the two of them, but he told me that today. So he'll probably be in 2 weeks. But if people haven't been checking out the People with a Passion interviews, I've spoken with some pretty amazing people. Alan Stein Jr., I don't know if you're familiar with Alan Stein's work, but he's worked with NBA players, mainly as juniors coming through, as DeMath at high school. And also, I said Kev Eastman. Brian Kane has worked with multiple Olympians in sports. He's worked with multiple UFC champions, including George St. Pierre, and has one of his belts. He shows that in the interview. He's a mental toughness coach. So if you're in the sporting space and you want to improve something right now, is an opportunity to actually work on your mental toughness. And he has a 3-day free online course for athletes on mental toughness. So on his 10 pillars. So if you want to go up and check out Brian Kane Peak Performance, by all means do that. So you got any other questions there? I said if there's any quick fire questions, we'll throw them out there. And So I can see that Mark's saying another good show. Thanks, been awesome, and says happy Easter, Biggie. So happy,
Nice. Rod
happy.
Tremblett said, "Good job, guys." Thank you, Rod.
Yeah,
He's a good lad.
yeah, he's
Fanfare. Will you write a book one day, Joe? You have great stories to tell, my friend. He's a
he
good egg.
yeah, he's. I tell you what, he does a great job with what he does, keeping everyone informed. I look forward to him. I'm disappointed. Actually, it's good he's keeping things going. I love that Frankenstein thing he posted here.
Yes.
he's a,
He's very. I'll tell you what. You're very, very witty. I'll give you that.
Yeah, he thinks outside the box. It's entertaining and informative at the same time. He has actually connected with me and suggested a few people that I should talk to, including the Tarrants. I don't know. I've coached against Jeff. I know Mike, but haven't coached. I coached against Jeff a while ago. I don't know him that well, and I don't even know if I've got him on Facebook or anything. Not that would be hard to connect with him, but
you won't find Jeff on Facebook.
No, well there you go. So well, it will be hard to connect with him. So yeah, like he did suggest a couple of people that we've spoken about. So
nice.
so yeah, he's been supporting what I'm doing, so I appreciate that as well. So I'm grateful for that. Great. I'll finish up there. Anyone who's on here, make sure you please go and give People with a Passion a like if you want to be notified of when I do these and or any of the videos and podcast stuff that goes up. And also go and subscribe to my YouTube channel, please, because I think I've got 9. I think in the last 2 weeks I've picked up about 30 subscribers, and I'm just short of 100 now. So it'd be nice if you guys could go and help and push that.
Jason Kadee would have done that. Having him on the show would have done that for you.
Yeah, so actually I've had a few, I've been interacting in other live streams with other people that are more influential, and I'm finding that's very successful too, because then that prompts them to go and look at your channel. So for those that are wondering on how to increase their subscribers a little bit, go and comment and or interact in live streams on YouTube before the live stream starts, because a lot of people sit there waiting. That's why I wish I was on YouTube tonight. Because what that does is it allows you to interact with other YouTubers who then go and look at your channel and subscribe as well. But anything that you can do to help creators helps. But Big Joe, I really do appreciate your time tonight, giving your time. As I said earlier, time is our most valuable resource, and we don't get it back. We only get this moment, and once it's gone, it's gone. So I really do appreciate you sharing your time with me and my audience, and also your friends and family.
No problems. Thank you for having me. And again, everybody that has tuned in, I also want to say thank you. It's very humbling, and I will take the time and make the effort to respond to. I don't even know how many comments there are there, but
there'll be a few, mate.
I'll take the time to do it.
All right, mate. Take care. Wish your family a safe and healthy Easter. And
Q.
I've lost you, but I don't know if I did that before and it disappeared. So I'm opening my email. Everyone's going to see my emails now. Oh, here we go. You're back. So sorry about that. I lost you for a second. All right, mate. I'll catch up with you later. I'll finish the stream. Appreciate everyone that's been in the chat. We'll do it again next week. And thanks for your time, Big Joe. Enjoy your Easter and take care, mate.
Thank you.